postdoctoral program. And as a postdoc, you have many of the same responsibilities as a research professor or someone who runs a research lab. But you're still kind of in training. You're in in-between mode. You work under another primary investigator, but you often have graduate students who kind of work for and with you. So it's a stepping stone to the full job of eventually running a full research lab, which is what professors at universities like Russell Vance do as part of their job, and also in the private sector, if you work in a biotechnology company, you could run your own research group at that company. So that's the research path. I did mention that I would say a little bit more about how to get summer research opportunities. So here's a whole bunch of links that you can't, utilize exactly right now, but this PowerPoint is going to be made available to everyone I can. I'm going to send it out to all the biology professors, and they will hopefully share it with you. And if you're my students, you'll get it directly from me. So this top one, I don't actually know who runs this, but there's this wonderful group at Rochester Institute of Technology who regularly update a huge database of paid internships in a variety of life sciences fields. There's things for people interested in veterinary medicine, dentists, research biology, medicine, a whole lot of, that's a big resource that I randomly found last year, and it's very, very good. Berkeley also has a similar research page, and Pathways to Science is another one. But there's also a few programs that are specific to community college students. Especially this top one here, I really recommend Transfer to Excellence. I had a student from my Bio 130 cell and molecular biology class who went through this program last year, and she's now applying to a master's program to stay in the lab that she is working at UC Berkeley, and that she worked at through it. They give you housing near UC Berkeley, and it's paid. You have a stipend for the summer. So the applications for a lot of these programs are due in usually around January. Some of them are in December, some are in February. So this is the perfect time to start looking at these programs, start gathering resources, talking to your professors about recommendations. So hit up these resources. If you want this email directly to you so that you ensure that you get it, you can come up to me at the end of this and write down your email, and I'll send it directly to you. Okay, so that was my plan delivery, and I think we should spend the rest of the time hearing your questions and answering them. I'm going to introduce the panel, and I'm going to call one of our panelists who was supposed to be here but had his job in Nevada extended by 2 weeks, so he's going to be joining us via Skype. While we are getting our Skype call up, I'm going to introduce our panelists. Alphabetical order, going down the road. Hi, Mike, you with us? Hi, I'm going to, here. Let me put up his label behind him. Okay, you're up on the board now. Don't worry, you're not too big, so. Okay, well, we can hear you, Mike. So, introducing our panelists, starting with Michael here. Michael Novak. He's a seasonal field biologist. He's worked for universities, government organizations, independent research institutes. He has a Bachelor of Science in Zoology with a minor in Spanish from UC Santa Barbara. His work involves collecting scientific data for wildlife research projects. He captures and tags birds, locates nests, and generally hikes around in natural areas. Many animals are studied only during a particular season within a year, and so his employment opportunities change frequently, and he ends up traveling a lot. He regularly rotates jobs, and he gets to see the world and participate in a variety of projects. He's currently applying for Master's of Science programs in the United States to build on his already expansive research experience. So that's Michael. To my left, Olivia Price grew up in Kentucky and graduated summa cum laude from Western Kentucky University in 2009, a double major in biology and French. She moved to the Bay Area 6 years ago and will graduate next month with her master's degree from Samuel Merritt University in Oakland to become a physician assistant after 3 years of training. She plans to specialize in internal medicine. Going down, Maddy Sanders is a newly licensed vocational nurse with a degree from Gurnick Academy of Medical Arts. She is pursuing a career in the realm of school nursing and pediatric care. She's recently accepted a position as a substitute school nurse with the San Carlos School District. Maddy has a bachelor's degree in English literature from Trinity University in San Antonio, Texas. She worked as a writer for an online marketing company before moving to the Bay Area and changing her career path to nursing. Her future aspirations are to obtain her RN to further her path in school and nursing and public education. Okay. After that, we have Brett. Brett is another adjunct biology professor here at DVC. He teaches the fundamentals of biology classes and microbiology, Bioscience 146. He attended Lewis and Clark University College in Portland, Oregon for his undergraduate degree in biochemistry, where he studied yeast genetics. He also went to UC Berkeley's molecular and cell biology PhD program and studied the epigenetics of how stem cells decide which genes to turn on and off during immune development. And after that, we have Adam Session. Adam Session is a geneticist working for the Department of Energy's Joint Genome Institute. He did his undergraduate work in genetics and microbiology at Rutgers University, which is the State University of New Jersey, where his research focused on using behavioral genetics to study the toxicity of A-beta-42, a protein linked to Alzheimer's. During undergrad, he did internships in yeast genetics lab at Duke and UC Berkeley. For his PhD, he worked in the molecular and cell biology department and focused on evolutionary genomics. He's helped assemble and annotate the genome of the African clawed frog, Xenopus laevis, and detailed the cause and consequences of allopolyploidy, the inheritance of extra chromosomes from species interbreeding in animal genomes. And last but not least, we have Russell Vance. Russell Vance was originally educated in Canada with a degree in biochemistry and philosophy from Queen's University. After briefly considering philosophy as a career, he enrolled in the UC Berkeley Molecular and Cell Biology PhD program in 1995, where he studied immunology and graduated in 2000. For his postdoctoral work, he changed fields and worked on microbiology and mouse genetics, before starting his own lab on post-pathogen interactions at UC Berkeley in 2006. In 2013, he was appointed as an investigator of the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, a very prestigious appointment. He is currently on sabbatical trying to learn how to work with Mycobacterium tuberculosis, a bacterium that kills over 1 million people a year, mostly in the developing world. And then lastly, I'm Mark Grabiner, for those of you who don't know me. I completed my Bachelor's of Science in Biochemistry and Molecular Biology at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. When I was an undergraduate, I studied targeted protein removal in yeast cells. Between that and graduate school, I spent a year at another lab at Brown studying breast cancer. And then I did my PhD work as well in the molecular and cell biology department at UC Berkeley, studying mammalian innate immune response to molecules from Pseudomonas aeruginosa in the context of cystic fibrosis, one of the most common genetic diseases in the United States and Europe. Since finishing at UC Berkeley, I have been an adjunct professor here at DVC, teaching classes in introductory biology, cell and molecular biology, Bio 130, and this semester human physiology, Bio 140. My path is that I hope to become a tenure-track full-time professor here at DVC or at another community college in the Bay Area. So that's our panel, and so now it's your turn to guide the discussion. If you have a question, raise your hand, and you can direct it at an individual panelist or the panel in general, and we'll try to give you an answer if we can.
For everybody, did anyone take any time off in between their undergrad studies and then moving to be competitive want anywhere from 1 to 3 years of paid work in a medical field. So after I finished undergrad, I worked for 3 years in a medical office, and then I applied to school because they want to make sure that like you don't graduate and then suddenly realize that you don't like sick people. So yeah, I took a few years and worked in between my PA program and undergrad.
Yeah, I too had time between, although mine is a little different because I had originally done English for my bachelor's, thinking I would do teaching, possibly go on to do a PhD in literature, and obviously changed routes. But I do think that even though I kind of required that time in between since I switched fields, that my working experience as a writer and using my bachelor's degree has been hugely important to my now medical background for the future. Because I think it's really useful with that experience.
So I didn't take any time off personally, but I had several friends who did, and I think that it's a great time to figure out if you really want to invest that amount of time into whatever your future path is. And so if you're spending that time really figuring that out, then I think it's time well spent. But I don't have it personally.
So I would say don't consider it time off. I mean, it just really depends what you do during that time. I mean, so I would say if you're just, if you took that time when just traveling around the world, that might be okay, but it's not going to really help your application, whatever you're going to do next, right? So I think many people who apply to graduate school and other programs have time working before they start those programs. And I think that is very good for the admissions committee to see because they know that you know what you're getting into, right? Because there's a big disconnect. I think this is like a really common problem that many undergrads realize is that there's a big disconnect between what you are doing as an undergraduate, which is sitting in classes and memorizing a bunch of stuff, or, and working in the careers. And they're very, very different. I personally did not really enjoy taking classes that much, but I really liked working in a lab. Okay, and those are very, very different things. And so it's hard for you to know, and it's hard for people sitting on admissions committees to know if you know what it's like to work. So I think it's really common and really valuable. One thing that people often say is, oh, I'm getting so old and I want to start my career. Okay, if you start your career by the age of 35, which might seem really late to many of you, you still have 30 years to have a career. So I would say don't feel like don't feel like you're in too much of a rush. Really try to spend some time figuring out if it's worth, I really emphasize this a lot, it's worth spending some time figuring out if it's what you actually want to do. And the only way to figure that out is to actually do it, I think. Because you won't really get a good sense of that from just taking classes somewhere. Sorry, I skipped you.
No, you're good. Yeah, I didn't take time off, but like Russell, everything Russell was saying is correct. I just wanted to add to that there's also the consideration that, with thesis especially, but even in other fields, I'm sure it's true that as soon as you take that step to get into a professional field, you're taking on for years some responsibility, whether it's 3 to 8 years, and that's a lot of stress. So I suggest people they should take time off, or at least, if you're teching, that's definitely going to be a plus for your application because you can write about, I went into science, I took on a project, and you could write about, yeah, this is really what I want to do. But even that's going to be less of a thing than necessarily taking out a thesis or a bigger project where it's going to be up to you to carry that for years. Because typically as a staff scientist or a tech, you're going to be getting told what to do. Which it's a hard job, but you're not necessarily it's not going to be something that haunts you. Which may seem like a dark thing to say about a thesis, but in the middle of grad school, there are going to be those times when it's just really draining. You're not going to want to have a life because you work all day, you think about work all night, and it's like dark to say, but yeah, that's the truth. And so, considering that, it is good to take time where you can. Like Russell was saying, don't just take time to go do whatever you want, but even if it's a technical position which is just less intense, where you can try out something, or in the medical field where you're trying out shadowing a doctor or something like a medical spreading, that allows you to put in a little bit of investment, see if you want to do it. and if it's a position that pays to protect us, it's less of an emotional investment for you to see if you really want to do this thing.
Thank you very much. Oh, except for my back.
Do you hear the question and do you have an answer?
Yeah, well, I'm currently taking time off between graduate studies, and I've really enjoyed my time. I only recently decided I wanted to go back to school. I had to take a lot of time to figure out kind of what I wanted to study, and there's a lot of like different techniques that you can learn only through doing them and learning about different areas of study, especially if you're working with like animals. There's like lots of species to consider and different types of studies, and it's just been a lot of fun in general. Like I said, my work's kind of seasonal, and so I get to kind of bounce around from job to job, and it's afforded me a lot of opportunities to see new places and to meet people. Networking is really important too. If you work in a field that you enjoy for a while, you'll eventually meet some people who can hopefully help you get started with a career or going back to school or something. So I definitely encourage people to take them on. They weren't exactly sure what they wanted to do.
Yeah, that last point of Michael's is also very important. I mean, taking this time off after you graduate perhaps and before you move on to the next career, making contacts with people, that is extremely, extremely important. And as you make those contacts throughout, your educational experience, keeping in contact with those contacts, and I mean, it's just like even just dropping them a note and saying, here's what I'm doing now, you build up this repertoire of people who can help you later on, and I think that cannot be, like a lot of jobs, you don't get them on your merits, you get them through contacts. I mean, just to be realistic. So having that experience and building connections with people in the fields that you might ultimately end up in is just so valuable.
Yeah, and also from the point of view of someone who's gone from trying to network with people to people trying to network with them now that I'm a professor, I really appreciate it when my students keep in contact with me and tell me what they're up to, and I'd like to help my students even beyond when the semesters where I clear my class. So I think people like both sides of those connections, so build them up.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
What would you say is the biggest difference between your university and PA and the life
So physician assistants are licensed medical practitioners. We see our own patients in conjunction with MDs. You always have an MD who you're associated with. But there's also, there's a great deal of autonomy, like, the MD with whom you work doesn't even necessarily need to be in the same city as you. So I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with nurse practitioners, but being a PA is actually it's a very similar career, usually different paths. Usually nurse practitioners start out LPNs, RNs, and they usually funnel into nurse practitioners, whereas PA, so both nurse practitioners and we see our patients, we do physical exams, we take histories, we order tests, we do procedures, we're in on surgeries. So I would say it's a different, it's a different emphasis as far as that's concerned. But yeah, PA's usually the background is it's usually less structured. You might be like an EMT, or you might have been like a respiratory therapist,